We pushed out Seth.
Yeah, we are good. Yes.
All right, well, let's call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Poolesville Commissioners. The date is January 4th, 2021, and all 5 commissioners are present, as well as Seth Rivard, our town manager, and Jack Gullo is here, our town attorney. And Martin, would you like to say the Pledge of Allegiance for us this evening?
Sure. Pledge allegiance to the
The
flag
flag of the United States of America
to the
and to the republic
For which it
for which it stands,
Nation.
one nation, under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Thank you. So I thought we would, depending on how many folks we have, or maybe even if we don't have many folks joining us tonight, I thought maybe we would, if it's all right with everyone else, we have a number of folks who are receiving awards and certificates of appreciation. I thought maybe we could just move them up to the top of the meeting.
You mean you don't think they want to hear about our I&I?
I know everyone loves hearing about I&I.
Very exciting stuff.
I say
All
we
right.
let.
No, I think you're right. I think we should move them up.
All right, want to let whoever we have in, Seth?
Let everybody in. Jim's contacted me. I'm not sure what that's about.
He's frozen, looks like.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to take a call and run the meeting?
One hand for the meeting, one hand for the phone.
So let me. Okay. So maybe one of you guys can reach out to him. So we're doing the lighting ceremony first.
Well, you can try to deal with, maybe Jim just needs to call in, maybe? Maybe he's having trouble with his video.
Let me see. We're gonna bring these.
Oh, there's Chrissy and Paul.
Hey, Chrissy.
Hello, how are you guys?
Hey,
Good, how are y'all
Paul.
doing?
Hello.
Hey, good. How are you?
Good.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy
Thanks.
New Year. I see someone else joining us.
Yeah, there should be Christina.
Oh,
It's
there
Hello,
she is.
here.
Hi,
There she
Christina.
is.
It says Michael.
That's okay. I just had to change my name too.
I guess we'll start if you're ready for us to talk about the holiday lighting.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Christy and I had the pleasure of judging the north and east side of Fisher Avenue. So Westmont, Seneca Chase, and then the new developments going out 109. And we have 3 different categories for the homes plus a business category. So on our side of town, the traditional category winners were Dean and Sandra Wolverton over on Spates Hill Road.
Great.
The contemporary winners were Dan and Kathy Savino in Munger Farm. And then the townhouse winners over here in Westmont were Ricky and Crystal Sheets on Coalhouse Road.
Great.
And I think there's just a single business category, which we both had, and that was Doctors Pike and Villegas Dental Office on Fisher Avenue. Or I'm sorry.
No, Fisher.
Yeah, Fisher.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was reading Wooten, but it's Fisher. But we just wanted to thank everybody. There was a great participation this year, I think due to COVID and people's time off and the mild weather. There were really a lot of decorations up and around. So it actually made things fun, but a lot more complicated to, I think we had 19 people that we put on a list and then came back for a couple hours and looked through the pictures and narrowed it down. So
Wow.
it's a lot of fun this year.
That's great.
Yeah, it definitely took a lot of time. More time than I thought it would.
A lot of streets to drive up and down.
So we did the other side of town,
Okay.
Westerly and Tom Fox. I don't know what that neighborhood is, and so our traditional winner was Donald and Denise Habib on Fisher Avenue.
Okay.
The contemporary winner was Jimmy and Angela Dyke on Tom Fox Avenue, and the townhouse was Mark and Katie Woods on Fisher Avenue.
Great.
And
Nice.
we had a great time. It was fun.
That's awesome.
Thanks for doing that, you guys.
Sure,
I know that's a lot of work, but hopefully a lot of fun too.
it is.
It is, yep. And I think there's a gift card prize for everybody that won in their
Oh
category.
yeah, what is the prize?
They are $50 gift cards to assorted businesses in town.
Oh, wonderful.
Nice. Nice.
I guess Kathy will get those
She
distributed
says
out.
to pick them up at town hall tomorrow.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Do they get their name in the monocle?
Maybe.
I don't
Better
know.
talk to Randy about that.
Hey, Jeff, you should.
I'm sure it will
Jeff,
be.
why don't you encourage
We
Randy
have
to do that?
we have posted on Facebook the pictures of the winners and their homes.
Oh, great.
Excellent.
We can do that. And so
Seth,
it is
can we make sure
$50.
that they know to pick up their prizes?
Yes, we'll make sure of that as well. In fact, that was already in the letter that was sent to them.
Oh,
So
great.
there are $50 gift certificates to Bassett's, Cugini's, House Poolsville, Christopher's, Mexican Grill, Oriental Gourmet, and White's Ferry.
Nice.
Oh, excellent.
Awesome.
Oh, I'm glad that we're sharing the love too. That's great.
Correct, exactly.
Well, very good.
Great.
Well, thank you all for your work on that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks for
Oh,
your
you're
time.
welcome.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Sure.
Sure.
No problem at
Without
all.
you.
Good to see you guys. Have a great year, and
Good to
we'll
see
see
you
you.
too.
Happy New Year.
See you
Happy
soon,
New Year.
hopefully.
Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year,
Happy
everybody.
New Year.
Great.
Yep, there-
And Seth, do you want to just acknowledge our other folks that
Yes,
we
I'm
have
going to bring
certificates of
them.
appreciation
I may.
for?
So I'm now going to do the certifications, the certificates of appreciation.
So we had a number of folks working on the census this year. I know we had an amazing outcome for our area. So really kudos to the folks who worked on the census. I know that is also a lot of time and energy, and especially during all of this COVID craziness. I know a lot went into that. So thank you in advance to the folks who worked on that. I guess you want to just announce their names?
Certainly. So regarding the census employees who, as Carrie said, did a great job ensuring that we had a good response rate, which was 86.5% response rate in this area, which was up 4.1% from 10 years ago. So those who are getting a certificate of appreciation: George Coakley, Jerry Klobakowski, Monica Molina, and
Bill McDonald.
Stephanie Graves, Bill McDonald. So those are the names for the census. Thank you.
Congratulations. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your hard work.
Yeah, thank you for all
You
your
did a
work.
nice job.
So this is what your certificate looks like, you know.
Oh, very nice.
So if you want to come by town hall and pick it up, I don't want to fold it and mail it, you know. You can put it in a flat file and mail it.
That's fine.
You know. You're welcome. Appreciate your efforts. So thank you.
It
Thank you
was
so
fun.
much. And then we also wanted to acknowledge our coordinator of the farmers market this year. Of course, it wasn't the first farmers market we've ever had in Poolsville. There was a really great collection of farmers who had a market a couple of years ago over in the parking lot where Watershed used to be. It was a Tuesday afternoon, I believe, market that was great. And there may have even been other markets that I'm not aware of, but I think that it was the first market that we've had on Wayland Commons.
Outside of Friday on the Commons, that's correct.
Okay, great.
But this was weekly and probably the first weekly. So Alicia, yours looks very similar. And
Thank you.
Thank you as well. So
Hi, Alicia. I didn't even see you
Hi,
there.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for all of your hard work on that as well.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us in there. We have some big plans for 2021, so
All right.
yeah.
We're
That's
excited to
great.
hear about them.
Yeah.
You know how I feel. I told you last time, but thanks. It was great. Nice to have that out there.
Thank you. Thank you. We're looking forward to a much bigger, more organized season since we're going to have a lot to
Great.
go over this winter. We're already planning. So thank you so
Sounds
much for your
great.
support.
I
Yep,
think
you
I may have
bet.
mentioned it before, but I definitely enjoyed the cinnamon bread.
Oh, yes, I'm sure that was Sarah Ships. It's delicious. All of our bakers are incredible.
Yes, yes.
They're really, really, really good. I mean, just so good. The products are amazing. They put so much love into everything they do.
The scones are very good as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of orders over the week and I deliver them in town. I deliver them where I live. So, you know, my actual inspiration is moving in with me. So she gets to be spoiled with all my new recipes as I work on them and create new stuff. So,
Oh, wow. Very
yeah.
good.
Very good.
Yeah. Was
Well,
good to see all that.
congratulations again on all that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're
I look forward to seeing that in person.
Us too.
All right.
All right. Have
Thanks,
a good
you guys. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Have
thanks,
a great
everybody.
night.
Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, we're gonna bring in a latecomer just for old time's sake.
Oh, dear.
Oh,
Look what the cat dragged in.
Lobakowski.
hey, Jared.
Jerry, how you doing? Oh, he's connecting the audio.
Okay.
I don't think he even knows he's here. So
He's waiting. He's watching the squiggly line.
You on the phone, Jerry?
He's calling Seth to say, let me in.
on the Coast Guard. I will say that really quick.
Here you
Link communicated with me and did state that the names will be posted in the monitor of the winners.
Great.
Hey, Jerry.
Jerry?
Yes, hold on. Once, yeah, I gotta, okay, is that it, sir?
The guy's busy.
Thank you.
Multitasking.
And calling in an airstrike.
When it hits 100, so.
All right, thank you, sir.
Well, Jerry, you're live on YouTube, going around the world.
I'm live on YouTube, good. I wish I could call an airstrike to find out who grabbed my card.
So you're a few minutes late, but I would be remiss. Make sure you see your award. This is that's the format. In fact,
Alicia?
it's
Oh,
Alicia,
okay.
but it's the template.
No,
It's
I don't
Alicia's,
ride.
but-
Wait, I don't ride that bus. I'm not William McDonald. Okay, good. William
That's what you get.
McDonald,
That's what you get when
George
you're late,
Coakley.
Jerry.
Yep, Monica. You got one for Monica Molina too, I hope.
They're samples, and they should look very similar because these are your templates.
Yeah.
So your templates still exist in an eternity out there.
Perpetuity, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway.
Jerry.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, look at that.
All right.
So obviously everybody got their accolades and thank you, and that's about all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, nice work on that, Jerry. That was great.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Good turnout.
Yeah, it was it. Bill McDonald deserves a lot of credit because when he was over at WUMCO, he was stuffing bags that were being handed out with information for people to take the census. Monica helped me in making a public information, what do they call them, PIA announcement, public announcement film. And George, he and I drove around and went to meetings together, and he helped me out as well in putting stuff in business windows throughout town. So I didn't do very much. I just wrote a few things, and I appreciate what the others did to help push the census higher than what it was back in 2010. So I thank them. They deserve the credit more than me.
Thank you,
Very
Jerry.
good.
Yeah, your passion for that show, Jerry. Thanks for all that.
Okie doke.
All right. Well, take care, Jerry.
You too.
Congrats.
Thank you,
Have a
Jerry.
good night. Happy New Year.
See you
Good
soon,
evening.
Jerry.
Happy New Year, Jerry.
All right.
Well, you got a lot of the folks to come, Seth. I didn't notice most of them until they were leaving the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was so quick. It was so
okay.
quick.
All
Well, that was good.
right. There we go. Guess we'll get.
So now we can go back to our commissioner committee reports. Did we lose Jim again, or is he still there?
Jim's there.
Jim's been here.
It might be frozen.
Just enjoying the patter.
Jim, do you want to start off with your report?
Okay, so fair access. As you guys know, we had it out and have gotten a lot of responses. We're still tabulating, so I'll send something out to everybody. But needless to say, I think that we're up close to 4,000 emails generated off the latest fair access push for support for White's Ferry. So I'll get you guys numbers via email, let you know how we're doing. We've got a lot of back and forth, some good dialogue. People are trying to get as much information as they can. They know that all the parties are working hard to try and help facilitate a good solution. So I feel like the communications are there, and we're waiting to, as you guys probably know, I didn't see a separate White's Ferry, so I don't want to step on his toes in terms of whatever updates they have.
We disappeared.
He trailed off.
All right, he'll be back.
Oh yeah, we lost him altogether. Well, I'll just piggyback on what he was talking about with the push for White's Ferry. Of course, we've all been involved in a number of meetings recently. Of course, this is the biggest news of the day, the closure of White's Ferry, and I'll just state what we've already stated a few times, which is that this is something that everyone is working on. Thanks again to Council Member Andrew Friedson and our Assembly Member David Hidalgo Frazier for joining us on New Year's Eve, our New Year's Eve meeting. Anyway, I just wanted to say thanks to them. Go ahead, Jim. Do you want to continue?
Can you guys even hear me? Because I'm.
Now we can. I heard that.
Can you guys hear me?
You're in and out.
Anybody, can they hear me? Hello.
Yes.
Yep, you're good, Jim.
Yep.
You're good.
Gotcha. I know. What's going on with this FiOS?
You got it, Jim.
Anyway, so back to it. You guys probably saw that the said, if you've reviewed the meeting that we had on the New Year's Eve meeting as well, what this comes down to is that both the owners of White's Ferry have made an offer, a written legal offer to the other side about purchasing permanent access. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
No. Okay.
Yes.
And so then that's on the one side, and then also too, as somebody may have reported already, that that on Wednesday afternoon, Andrew's office arranged a meeting with the Montgomery County Department of Transportation, both the incoming and the outgoing department heads, with Herb and.
Jim disappeared.
Well, welcome to modern technology.
I know.
Back and
Boy,
forth.
this is the fun evening we're having here.
Sorry.
Well, I think what Jim was starting to report on was the fact that there are talks happening between county officials, DOT, and the Browns, hoping to come to some resolution. And of course, we're all staying on this. I know the various news outlets have been continuing to contact Town Hall. So this is, this is going to be an ongoing process that we're all involved in. And, thanks to the community support as we move forward.
This not only made all the local news, obviously, but CBS ran a national story on it.
Oh yeah, this is.
Oh, really?
I mean, it was on the front page of the Post. So
yeah, it's a big deal, and it's a big deal for us, and it should be a big deal for Loudoun County.
That's right. That's right.
It's really a significant piece of history as well.
Hey Jim, can you hear us?
All right,
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. The last thing we heard was you were talking about the meeting between Andrew and the Browns and the
right,
Department of Transportation.
Right, 2 or 2:30 on Wednesday. I'm going to speak quickly so I can get my stuff out here. But 2 or 2:30 on Wednesday, they're going to be meeting. We don't have to be there just to see how they can help facilitate solutions on.
We're losing you again, Jim.
I mean, the board is open to there much as anybody.
We're losing
Sorry,
you.
can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Now, yeah.
I know. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I don't know why. I'm sitting right next to my router, so
No. I wonder if you should call in.
I'm going over to my phone.
Okay.
Phone.
Does anyone have anything else they want to add about
Go to my
Whitesbury?
phone. So
Oh, he's still there.
Yeah, and I'll switch over to my phone. Go ahead.
Okay. Carrie, you want me to give,
I was
you want
just
me to
gonna,
give my
I'll just
report?
throw it out to everybody else if anyone else had anything else to add about Whitesbury while
I do have access when I'm live again.
No, Carrie,
I was
I don't
not
have anything
able-
to.
I was
You want
not
me to
able
do my
do that.
report while we're waiting for Jim?
Yeah, go for it. Why don't you go ahead?
So we had a planning commission meeting a couple weeks back, and it was kind of a big one. We had a preliminary site plan for the Pond View re-subdivision. It was a simple one lot subdivision. It was approved 5-0. The same applicant wanted a fee waived for that, and that was denied by a 4-1 vote. The Willards came in with their updated plan for the property next to Town Hall, and the general impression by the planning commission was it looked pretty good. It was it was well received, I would say, and we voted unanimously to recommend that to the town commissioners for approval of the overlay zone. And it's my understanding that the way this works is that we approve the overlay zone, and then it goes back to the planning commission, and they get into the nitty gritty of yard size, road size, all that stuff. It's approving the. Seth, correct me if I'm wrong, but approving the overlay zone does not give them any kind of it's more like a concept approval, not total approval.
That's correct. As you noted, they come back to the planning commission for the technical details, but it
Right.
does remain with the planning commission at that point.
So I think that we'll have to have a public hearing on that, and then this board will have to vote on that at some point in the future. But I can tell you that if you haven't seen it yet, it looks a lot better than it did the first time around. And then we had something called the Bricken property, which is a Jameson-owned property out on West Willard Road, where they want to put 70 homes, and that was just like the initial review of that plan. We didn't really give them a ton of feedback yet. That will be probably more for the next planning commission, and I suspect we're going to have a lengthy I&I discussion tonight that will affect all this stuff. So that was my busy planning commission meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a question for Martin.
Sure.
Well, maybe you already answered it actually, and that is regarding the Willard property next to the town hall.
Yeah.
So there'll be a public input meeting. I guess that'll be by Zoom at some point.
Well, the next step will, Seth, step in if I'm wrong, but the next meeting will be a public meeting to basically vote on anytime there's a zoning change. It has to be listed in the paper, and we have to advertise it, and then the public can hear us vote on it. So or discuss it and then vote on it. So that'll be the next step, and then it'll go back to the planning commission for some back and forth about little stuff like porch size, yard size, roads, stuff like that.
Well, I was on the meeting with the Parks and Recreation and Streets Committee when there was a presentation of the Willard property made, and I was just wondering, will the same gentleman, the Willards, make that same presentation to the commissioner board?
Yes, it's the same group that will make that presentation as well. So they made it to a planning commission. You can watch a planning commission meeting, and then they'll be before you and the date and time you set at this meeting for the public hearing.
Okay, thanks, Seth. Thanks, Martin.
Yep.
And the
Yep.
public hearing, we're talking about February, is that correct?
February 1st, that's correct.
Okay.
Just,
And where do we, what paper do we post that in?
we've been, since we don't have a general circulation now, we're using the Frederick Post, and that's what we agreed on previously with some other matters before the town commission that needed a legal notice.
Okay, great.
I would, Carrie, I'd just like to note that Linda with the Ethics Commission said she has to leave at 7:50. So I just want to let you know from a scheduling standpoint, so regarding the ethics update. So I wanted to keep you in the loop on that time frame.
Okay, well, if Jeff and Ed don't mind waiting to give their reports, maybe we could let her in now.
Yes, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and do that? We'll switch everything around tonight.
All right. I don't see there. Marcus, can you hear us?
I can.
Certainly.
Great.
Linda said she was on a time schedule. I don't see her in the waiting room, but sounds like you. There you go. There she is. She'll be coming in now.
Thanks for joining us.
So this is an update from the Ethics Committee. I think, Jay, I don't know if you want to introduce anything or let the committee members do that, but I'm going to tee that up and hand it over to you, Jay.
Okay, I'm the attorney for the Ethics Committee in our town too, and the Ethics Committee is a board of 3 members that is responsible for looking into any ethics complaints that are made, and they also deal with reviewing the financial disclosure forms that the town employees and you all fill out and candidates fill out. Right now, we have 2 active members, and they're on board, Marcus and Linda, and they have their report that you all have in your package, and they can highlight those about what they've done and the year they had. So Marcus, Linda, take it away.
Go ahead, Linda.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
We revised our form last year. Anybody who's been part of the board or had to complete the financial disclosure statement knows that it was a painful process. You had to do it by hand. So over, not last summer, but the summer before, I actually revised it. And then Bobby helped put it into a format that allowed people to complete the form online. And what the result was is that we had much better compliance with the completion, the accuracy of the information, the signatures and completing. So we were pretty pleased with that. And some of you or most of you should have gotten in your mailboxes today a request to fill out the disclosure for 2020. It's a look back. So we found nothing of consequence. There were minor errors that we asked people to fix. And we have not received any requests for ethics investigations this year, hoping that that continues to be the case. As we noted in our report, the only person who did not, the only required reporter was a member of the Ethics Commission that failed to report. So we've approached her to ask her to either comply or submit her resignation, and we have not heard one way or another about what her plans are. So for now, it is Marcus and myself, and he and I are usually of similar minds when it comes to a review of the documentation and approaching issues. He and I are available to answer any questions. Marcus, I didn't know if you had anything to add.
No, I would just say we're of similar minds because I learned early on to do what Linda said. So.
Smart
Well,
fella.
thank you guys very much
Good ethics right there.
for all that you do.
Any questions or concerns?
Paperwork that we got in the email today, was that to cover 2020?
2020, yes, it's retrospective. So You
I
will
think
be
I already
reporting
hit
on
an error then.
2020?
On
Yes.
page 1, it asks for the year. I
Mhm.
put in 2021.
Well, we know.
Bobby,
We'll know.
I guess
Well,
I'll fix that
if you
in the
can
call.
predict with certainty what's going to happen,
Yeah.
Jeff, you're a better man than I am. But
Yeah,
yes, it's retrospective. So you're talking about what happened
Okay,
last year.
thank you.
Yeah. So it's annual for everyone, but then for those of you that just went through the election, you had to fill in one for that. So
Right, right.
Is
So
it
I
the
guess
same
my
copy
thing?
and
only,
paste.
So I'm wondering because I was reading through it today. I said, wait a minute, I think I already did this. Would you need us to do a new one, or are we okay with the one we did?
If you ran, you need to do a new one.
Okay,
If you're in
no
office.
problem.
And so it
now you
covers
do
the
one as a
period
commissioner.
from
Got,
November to December
gotcha.
as a commissioner, right?
And the pro tip Ed, is you should keep it, Xerox it, because you have to do it every year, and it makes it much
Yeah.
easier if you just keep
Yeah.
a copy so you can reference it.
Well,
That
now
is a
you
good
can.
pro tip.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Pro.
Okay, the
So I
fillable
guess the
form
only
was appreciated.
question is for Jay to if you could go over what the process is now moving forward.
Yeah.
So we have one ethics committee member that is
Yeah, well,
a no show, I guess.
MIA.
While the board is here to hear this, so we all know that not filling out the form that you all had to fill out obviously is bad because it's the only one, especially when it's an ethics form. But that is not the major issue that we face. The major issue was that the member did not participate in any of the meetings last year at all. And, our board is only 3 people, so it makes it a little more difficult, a little bit more work. Letters were sent. The board themselves sent a letter. I believe the town hall followed up with the person, either via email or phone call, but there was follow-up. And there was just no response at all to this. The charter, if you want to check for yourselves, section 82-27A talks about what happens when somebody on one of our boards and commissions fails to participate or otherwise be involved. And it's pretty specific. It says a vacancy exists if the person does not attend 25% of the meetings. So this individual did not attend 25% of the meetings. And the trigger on this is that the board, meaning the ethics board in this case, brings it to the Board of Commissioners, you all, officially telling you that there was an absence in excess of 25%, and thereby the vacancy is created when you know about it. The person who has been vacant or has been absent has basically the ability to say, well, the reason why I was absent is because, and that person never availed themselves to that because we reached out to them several times. So the vacancy becomes effective or final, if you want to use those words, 30 days from today. So long and short of that, a letter would still need to go out and say, this was brought to the board's attention. It would be signed by the president. You are no longer on the ethics board. End of story. And then you can reappoint a new person after February 4th. That make sense? That? So that's where we are. This board is very important. The 2 members you see do a lot of work when we have meetings. The meetings are a couple hours because they have to go through every form. And so when you pick somebody, you'd like to pick somebody who's going to have the time to dedicate to this and realize that it's not limelight work, but it certainly is behind the scenes important. And this board is also, and although they didn't do it this year, had to grapple with tough issues when people make ethics complaints. And those complaints would be about you all or people in the town that are subject to the ordinance. So you need to have somebody that is kind of a fair-minded, calm person to be looking into that.
So we need to wait 30 days until we can advertise.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I would suggest, that you'd wait till February 4th and then advertise the vacancy.
Do the commissioners vote on who is going to fill the vacancy then, like we did with the planning commission?
Yes, like planning commission, you'd have personnel session, interview them, and then you would nominate them. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Well, all right. If anyone has any questions or concerns about completing their financial disclosure you can let us know. And we can certainly walk you through for the new commissioners if you have any questions. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you very much for all you
Thanks for
do.
letting us
Thanks a
come in
lot.
early. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good
night.
evening.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
Bye.
Year.
Happy New Year.
So the takeaway, I will prepare a letter for the president to sign to the individual stating that at this meeting, it was brought to the attention, yada, 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 and that the vacancy is created.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks.
Okay.
Jeff, do you want to move forward with your report?
My report from the Parks and Recreation and Streets, we actually, what's today? Today's Monday. We have the meeting on Wednesday.
Okay.
So I'll have to give my report at the next commissioner meeting.
Okay, great. And Ed.
Hey, and it looks like Jim's back also. But our meeting, I'll go to my first meeting of the year. We have that on January 27th. So after that, I'll be able to report from there. And I think Seth's going to put something on the agenda for the next meeting that comes up.
Okay. Jim, now that you're back, was there anything else you wanted to add to your report?
I mean, first of all, can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, very clear.
That's a good start.
Much better.
I did have one question on the ethics committee. Did anybody actually call the individual that has not been responding? I mean, everybody knows who that person is. It seems kind of crazy that we're like just notifying and sending emails, but has anybody actually approached them and talked to them? I wonder.
We've definitely called. I'm very confident we've called. We've emailed. We may even send a letter.
We did send a letter. I did that part.
Yeah, well, I think we've tried like literally every form of communication. And I think that's what's kind of got us a little surprised.
It is.
Yes, it's very strange, especially since wasn't this person added not that long ago?
Has anyone checked to make sure the person's okay?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the person, so it's just seems kind of surprising. So anyway, that's fine. If people have actually tried to reach out to her besides sending a letter or an email, then that's the best we can do. So
yeah, it's really unfortunate.
Odd. Anyway, end of story on fair access is you guys heard about the rest of the White's Ferry story. So we're, it's fluid. It's there's been negotiations taking place. We're moving into this meeting on Wednesday. I guess we'll all find out what's happening after that, and hopefully we're making progress. And definitely all the right people are involved, it feels like. And we should get a report back on Wednesday after the meeting from Andrew's office. So we'll have some sort of good news there. And on fair access, on the other side of the story, we've got there is a meeting for the public this Wednesday afternoon that we will be pushing out, that anybody can go in on Zoom and see what's going on with the county and the build plans for the new high school. So it's a full general public meeting. If anybody's been to those before on Zoom, they're a disaster for the most part. So we'll just kind of listen to see what the building, the director of building is going to be talking during it and walking people through where they are with the high school design concept. So that's this Wednesday afternoon. I'll make sure everybody gets to see what it is. You'll get the public Zoom invite. It's definitely for the public. Just be prepared. The last one that we had people, raising questions about completely unrelated things to the high school project. So it's just typical of a large Zoom meeting. The Fair Access Committee has a more kind of a working meeting with Montgomery County on Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. So all the Fair Access Committee members will get a Zoom invite for that. We just put this together because we felt like, there's the people that are really involved with the high school project. It's kind of hard to get a word in edgewise when the general public's asking, questions like, where on the roof will the solar panels be, those things. So, I mean, there's a place and time for everything, but on Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., the Fair Access Committee gets a dedicated meeting with Montgomery County Construction, and we're kind of really get more of an in-depth look of where we are. So those two meetings are coming up. We'll have a big update after that. I'll make sure I put something in writing for all the commissioners, and I'm sure we'll put something out on Facebook too as an update to the general public. That's
Hey,
it.
Jim.
Yeah.
Jim, I thought there was a meeting on Thursday.
Maybe Thursday. Yeah, I'll look again to see what it is. I thought it was Wednesday because they wanted us to schedule us for the same day.
I sent that postcard out that they had sent, and I'm pretty sure
Whatever,
that
right,
Wednesday
whatever
this.
that is.
Yeah, I think it's Thursday the 7th, maybe at 6 p.m.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sure you're right, Seth.
I have it in my calendar on Thursday at 6 p.m.
Yeah, there you go.
I
Okay,
looked
good.
on the website and copied down the Zoom link.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Jeff, you're right. You and I even emailed on that. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yes. So so that Zoom link will get published and pushed out to everybody over the next day or so that you can see it. And as I said, everybody's welcome to chime in and be a part of it. But once again, it kind of just degrades into this like review. And they do try to answer as many public questions as they can, but it's hard. So, I mean, the last one we did had a couple hundred people on it. So. Anyway, so yes, that is Thursday, January 7th at 6 p.m. and we will be putting the word out.
Hey, Jim, you made a mention earlier of an offer did you say there was an offer made to the landowners in Virginia?
Right. So what's been conveyed to me is that the Browns on this side have had ongoing dialogue with the family on the other side.
Right.
And a formal offer was extended for the purchase of a permanent easement and use.
So that's changed. Last I heard, it was an informal offer, but they've reached out with a formal one. That's good.
So that's what we've heard. So I haven't seen any of this. So it's just
okay.
Best case scenario that they've gotten serious about it and put something out there. So I'm just encouraged because negotiations are taking place, and I'll be further encouraged once our Montgomery County delegation and the people from the Maryland side become more intimately involved in the process. So
yeah,
that's supposed to take place on Wednesday. So again, that's what I've heard, and hopefully we just keep our fingers crossed that these guys keep talking.
Mm-hmm.
Martin, yourself, I think several of us have gotten texts that said at one point it was encouraging, and another point it's not encouraging, and I guess that's we could probably step back by 30 feet and figure out that that's the nature of negotiation. So
yep. Well, I think Andrew Friedson said it best. Like nothing's going to happen till it all happens. So
right, yeah, that was pretty sage. Anyway, that's all for fair access. If anybody else has any questions or anything like that, Ed, I'm sure that we'll we'll have a chance to talk before the meeting on the Wednesday morning 8 a.m. meeting.
Yep, sounds good.
That's it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks for tolerating all my media issues.
Now you get a chance to see what teachers and students and parents go through.
Man, it's got to be terrible. Got to be terrible. Okay.
So next on our agenda is we've had a whole slew of meetings, so we have a lot of minutes to approve. Did anyone have any minutes that they wanted to pull for any reason that were inaccurate or needed to be edited for any reason?
I didn't see anything.
No,
Okay.
I didn't.
If not, would someone like to make a
Perfect timing.
approve? See, we have the minutes from December 7th, December 14th, December 21st, and December 28th.
Wow. Can I make a motion that we approve all of those in one go?
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second Jeff's motion.
All those approve? All those in favor, excuse me. Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Next, we have public comment. Do we have anyone joining us?
We do not have anybody joining public comment.
And then we're on to old business. First up is our COVID update.
Yes, the only thing I have under COVID is that in the Poolsville zip code, we have 161 cases. That's pretty much all I have.
I have something.
Go ahead.
I received my first dose of the vaccine.
Great.
On December the 31st. So now I wait. So my next second dose is scheduled for 28 days from the first, so now it's 24 days, so January the 27th or something like that.
That's great.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's through the fire department because I'm, one of the first responders, so.
Yeah.
That's
Through
great.
Montgomery County Fire Rescue Services.
Did they give you
Good.
any information about, sort of when it's effective and?
I got 3 or 4 pages of of information to
Great.
read over, so it was quite thorough indeed. It was the Moderna vaccine that Montgomery County Fire Rescue Services has.
Great.
So yeah, so and absolutely no side effects whatsoever. People have been asking me how do I feel. Yeah, no side effects whatsoever. So knock on wood.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. I think that you sharing your experience helps others to be more comfortable when it's their opportunity to get the vaccine as well. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree, Ed. I think some people are reluctant, and maybe knowing somebody that has the vaccine and has no issues is maybe beneficial for them to hear.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. Does anyone have anything else on COVID? Okay.
No.
So then we're on to our impact fee increase for I&I.
Certainly. We'll jump right in. Just let me give you kind of an off the top couple pieces of information. The plan itself is permitted to process 750,000 gallons. And you have to be at your 80% capacity threshold on an average, which means 600,000 gallons. So 600,000 is really the functional top limit because there's a 20% reserve. And once you start getting to that 20% reserve, MDE makes you do a capacity improvement plan. And that would be pretty difficult for us to meet. So we are kind of at the 600,000-ish ratio on an average at the plant now, more or less meaning that our capacity is more or less maxed out for the most part at that ratio and number, the 80% values I just described. If you have a question about that, can take it now or a little bit after the full report. So there's a few projects that could be completed if we're able to find I&I. As you know, you all approved in the July of 2020 a capacity improvement plan, or capacity plan, I should say, that acknowledged how many units that could be constructed if we're able to tighten up some of our I&I, which is for everybody's references, stormwater and rainwater entering in our sewer pipes. Once it gets into the sewer system, it has to be treated at the plant, so that takes up capacity that we would otherwise have if it was just strictly sewer going in there and no water entering the system. And so we figured we could probably capture about 75,000 gallons by keeping it out. That's probably the best way is we can keep out about 75,000 gallons by doing some infrastructure improvements through the I&I. So, the baseline of 75,000 of capacity we could create by doing those projects. Each home represents 325 gallons per home. So when you take the 75,000 gallons divided by 325, that means you can get about 230 equivalent dwelling units in town. So that means you could have about another 230 homes come online. That's kind of the raw numbers there. But then the cost to create that capacity. So our town engineer who's with us, John Strong, has identified about $1.8 million worth of improvements needed to at least capture that 75,000 gallons. So you have 230 homes that could be constructed, and you have $1.8 million worth of improvements that need to be done. If you take the 1.8 million divided by the 230 homes that need the capacity, you're looking at about $7,800 per home to create the capacity. As I noted in my staff report, we don't have to fix these repairs right away. We don't have to deal with these repairs immediately. We will eventually have to deal with some of them, maybe not even all of them. But we could plug a portion of these and still be a little bit good on our side, ensuring we have ourselves underneath the 80% threshold. Of course, some of this is town infrastructure, so we do have a certain responsibility to take care of some of these things and address some of these issues as well. So we are also partners in this situation. But it's staff's, professional judgment that the impact fee should be raised by $5,000 to cover the inflow and infiltration projects so the development community has capacity. We would pick up the other $2,800 and $26 to pay for the remaining I&I needs to be able to benefit the town itself. So there's a development benefit, there's a town benefit, they merge, and that's how the fee would get split up. Again, in discussions with the town engineer, we feel comfortable that we can make these improvements and get the capacity we're talking about as identified in this report. And this proposal, the fee itself, is supported by Chapter 5.5, development of impact fees in the town code. So in communications with town attorney and engineer, we feel that we have a plan here that allows this all to work well for creating the capacity for the capacity plan that we identified this summer. That's really the nuts and bolts of it. I mean, I can take questions if you have them, but that's really the core of this discussion.
I have a question.
Yes.
You've gone over the additional homes that would be that the 75,000 gallons would free up. Where do businesses fit into that? If we
certainly.
I know we have locals coming online. Someone will probably go into Blue Hearth. There's other things.
Certainly. So in the example you presented there, it does include commercial. So when it says equivalent dwelling unit, that there's an equivalency ratio that bears out for commercial places. And so there is capacity, not just for homes. Homes is a very easy example to use. But of that 230, for example, a business might need 6 of those units, right, as an equivalency, right? So they might need, 6 times 235, 6 times 325 gallons. And so they're kind of taking 6 home units as an equivalency for their business. So it's not exclusive to homes. It allows for commercial as well.
Okay.
And depending on where your master plan directs you, you may find yourself doing some or encouraging some infill in the downtown area, in the village center, I should say.
And then how much of I know that the county or Maryland MD has a buffer you're supposed to follow, the 20%. But do you have any kind of a buffer you're putting in there, just to sort of keep us safe?
There is a margin of buffer that we believe will be in here as well. So some of the cost we're putting into this will help add to that buffer, if you will. So the developer's kind of paying for their level of capacity. We're paying for a little bit more. That'll give us the buffer we feel that we need.
And if we make, maybe this is a question for you, John Strong, if we make $1.8 million worth of repairs over the next, few years, how long before another $1.8 million in repairs, comes online? I mean, I know this is you're constantly fixing things and new.
Correct. So the life expectancy of a system is approximately 50 years. So the areas that we've worked in before, those were coming up on their life expectancies to roll out. Once we make these repairs to the system, most, if we do all 1.8 million, most of the system will be lined. And also the connection points between the main and the laterals will be taken care of. Based upon that, you shouldn't have another large bill to deal with, assuming no catastrophic failures have taken place along the line. We can't predict catastrophics. So right now, as you know, Westerly and Wesmond have been lined with the exception of the 6-inch lines. And those lines are lined up to the property line where the cleanouts were installed. So one of the things that we found in a couple different places is that the lateral work was never done, such as on Fisher Avenue, Elgin Avenue, and we identified those places. We also know that along Fisher Avenue from basically 109 down to Wooten, that has the mains in. We were able to get the top hat, what we call the top hat, is just a description of what it looks like, attached, but the laterals haven't been done. And I don't know if you recall, down by the hair salon at that Jameson building, we actually had to excavate a line there because it had basically collapsed. And what we found was that it was a cast iron pipe with a 90-degree bend in it, which is never good for a sanitary system that's gravity fed. So there are places in the town that need to be done at some point, and we identified those. And along Fisher Avenue, Elgin Road 109 side, those laterals haven't been lined at all. Neither have a top hat connection been installed.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it just
to finish out some of your question there, as well as the life expectancy is about 50 years on this. So some of these you just did 20 years ago. And to be clear, like this should be the last major bill in terms of lining the sewer lines as well. There will be upcoming costs that I'll present for some aging water lines and those sort of things. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah. Hey, John, let me a random question for you. I know that there's been we purchased some things that show us like the flow inside these pipes and everything like that. How much in the next 50 years can we expect technology to like soften the impact of, you know, this I&I issue? Like, is there technology like moving in water sewer?
The lines themselves are gravity feed systems, and that's really what we're dealing with, is a series of gravity feed systems, and also then the pumping stations, which are fed by gravity systems. The lining, we've made a significant jump in the last 20 years over to SDR 35, which is a plastic pipe, PVC pipe, that gives us the ability to create better joints. And the pipe lasts a lot longer than they used to. You don't end up with fracturing terracotta, which was used back in the day. So that's improved. Our lining ability has improved too, but the most effective to date still is where we slip a liner down it, we inflate it, we steam it, and put it in. There's new technologies that use UV and things like that, but it's still outstanding on it. Some of the lining techniques inside of manholes, they've improved immensely, but in another 30 years, it's hard to say because you're dealing with a structure. You're replacing a structure. It's not a technology jump per se.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And the first half of your answer was that we're putting better material in the ground with new developments today.
Correct.
So in anything in the last 15, 20 years, it's probably going to have a better life expectancy of what we put in 40 years ago.
Correct.
And then I have a question, Jay, for you. Like, what if we decide as a commission that our sewer capacity is limited? This is all very hypothetical, and then somebody says, well, I want to build X amount of homes, but we don't have the capacity. What happens then? Do we have to legally give them something if they're willing to pay to help get the capacity, or how does that work?
We have an obligation to try to make the capacity happen or move towards getting capacity, but the payment or the cost of doing that has to be borne by the party that wants the capacity. And I guess at some point in time, you could theoretically come up against a limit where there is no capacity. Let's just say that, I mean, and this is again hypothetical, general, this is a lawyer speaking engineering terms. If your plant was 100% effective, there was no I&I, and it was just the most perfect plant, eventually it reaches capacity.
Sure.
And so no matter what you did to create better things in your lines like you're doing now, you wouldn't be increasing capacity at that point. You would actually be trying to figure out how to treat more effectively to get more of the unwanted nutrients out so that you didn't hit your nutrient cap. Okay. And right now you're at the technological limits. So maybe down the road, there'd be a way that that might change. We are under an obligation to do best efforts to move in that direction, which is why this creates the asset. Think the asset is capacity. Normally we think of an asset like a plant or a well or something, but the asset is actually the capacity. And so they're paying to create more capacity in a thing we already have. If you don't,
Sorry, so just to clarify, so Martin's question is actually what is happening right now, correct? I mean, we are currently at capacity, and we are being asked, or you're saying that we're mandated to create a situation where we can possibly have more capacity.
We're at capacity because our plant is functioning to treat the I&I. So therefore, we can't build a bigger plant. That's not in the cards. Okay. Right. So for us to create capacity for new development, so an impact, we have to take out the I&I component. So the impact is taking out the I&I component. Said a different way, if we didn't have any new houses to build, we could live at some point in time with this I&I. We could live with it. It could be treated just like it is today. Mm-hmm. But we need to replace the rainwater with sanitary sewer water from new houses, right. And that has a cost. And so in your mind, think about it as I was saying, like capacity. It's tough when you're thinking about like water going into a pipe, but think about it this way. If you had a well that produced 300 gallons per day, and that served all the town that you needed. But now you had more townhouses, people coming in, so you need a well that produces 400 gallons a day. You may not need to drill a new well. You may need to put a bigger pump in. The cost of that bigger pump should be borne by the people who are causing the need for the extra water, the 100 gallons, if that's making any sense. And that's what we're doing on the sewer side. It's just harder to visualize because it's cracks underground in pipes.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. And one last question for now is Seth, in the report that I'm looking at, there's a bullet point towards the end, right above staff recommendation, that says, for properties located in the 10% other residential location, the capacity is not as great, but property owners that have expressed an interest, there's capacity for those projects. What property owners does that refer to?
Let's, because there's multiple things in here, I guess. Okay, I see where you're at. This is almost more or less the existing platted lots areas. Okay. Well, now I have to look at this a little closer to me. We've got the downtown. Yeah. We've got the village.
It's all the way at the bottom, right above your recommendation.
Right. Yeah, I need to take a look at the most of that other town is other residential. I'm going to take a look at, but I believe most of that, Martin, is sort of the pre-existing platted lots, because the other, meaning the 22,000 gallons, that's the 30% town use set aside for that. You're right. That 7,500 gallons is for other development projects, not just single family lots.
And then I'm curious. I'm ignorant to this kind of thing. I fully admit, but I'm curious for Seth to hear from you and from Jay. And I'm not, in my mind, I'm not leaning towards either, wanting to go either direction. But why would you not charge the full $7,800 why would you not build that into the impact fee versus $5,000 versus $1,000, say? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Jay, do you want me to take the read?
I'll try to do the legal money side thing.
Yeah, please.
Is that the full impact of their development is creating a certain need for allocation. However, we, even if they didn't exist in this perfect world, still have a need to fix some of the I&I because it's causing problems where we spike, and it gets too technical for me to explain, but it's not just the same every day, like your bathtub fills up and your bathtub empties. Sometimes we spike high, sometimes it's low. And over a period of time, when you fill out your reports to the Department of Environment, that causes us to have a violation. So if no one wanted to knock on our door, we still would want to spend money to fix that stuff to stop violations. But we're going to fix more, and that'll help with the capacity. And John, probably, I think you want to put some.
I just want to clarify when Jay says we're going to fix more, it's for the development's benefit, just for sake of clarity.
I have a question also.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, my question is, so the figures are, I'm guessing asking Seth or Mr. Strong, the figures are we're currently at 600,000 gallons, which is the maximum permitted. And then we have a plan here to spend $1.8 million and fix the infiltration, which is believed to be 75,000 gallons. And are we kind of giving away something that we don't have to give? Because what I'm wondering about is, and maybe it comes down to a confidence level, that we spend $1.8 million. Do we know for some reasonable assurance that we'll get back 75,000 gallons with the $1.8 million? Or is this kind of a guess, or we hope that's going to happen?
It's an imperfect science a little bit is what you're asking. But based on a lot of improvements we've done in town, we know what we've been able to capture. And there's also, metrics, not just here in town of what we've done, but of other past projects and what has been yielded the results. We probably may capture a little bit more than 75,000, but 75,000 is the conservative amount. So we may be at 85, we could be at 95, but that's the additional part, that helps us pay into and contributes to some of that increase. So it's an imperfect science. We feel very confident that 75,000 is a conservative value. And that's what we've operated on, and that this can occur based on our past practices and what has occurred, in other jurisdictions with this technology being used.
And so I have a follow-on question then, Seth. So let's say we spend $1.8 million and we do get 75,000 gallons worth of capacity kind of back because there's less infiltration. And then that capacity is then given to 230 homes. Seems quite a large number to me, but anyway, let's say 230 homes kind of consumes that additional capacity. Then we're kind of back at full capacity of the wastewater treatment plant. So I guess my question is, if we have 230 homes built, we're kind of back in the situation where we are. Do we have a plan, long-term plan for building a new wastewater treatment plant or something that eliminates this or gives us a bigger capacity and a larger cap?
So the answer to that question is basically, you're right. We essentially eventually come back to sitting at 600,000 gallons. If we, maybe it's 550, maybe it's 610. But if we sit in that zone, we should be comfortable not having to expand capacity because we basically topped off the vehicle, right? I mean, you fill up your vehicle, you still might need a few more gallons to make the trip. You don't expand, your tank, you don't expand your gas tank, you kind of fill up at another point. We will just have to be responsible to ensure that we maintain our system at a high quality level so that we never increase. So basically, we do have to be conscientious of maintaining our infrastructure that we can stay right at that 600,000. So it's not as if we do 230 and then find another way to bite at the apple. That's really sort of the end of the line of the development process as well. But it does keep us a little bit honest that we have to maintain our infrastructure well so that we don't go in excess and that, we go back to excessive infiltration. Now, we've touched on technology a little bit. Who knows what that'll do? We do know that a lot of homes are getting more and more energy efficient as appliances get replaced and other things happen as well. So we've seen that with some of the new developments. We have no reason to expect that as older homes get updated and improved and new appliances come in, that some of those energy saving, particularly water, that then end up in the sewer system won't help in some minor way as a collective across all the households to help us with our capacity.
So,
Hey,
well,
Seth, let me ask you a question. Just
Sure.
to follow along. So you said if those improvements take place,
Mhm.
and my question is somewhat aligned with Jeff's question. And so let's say you build out to capacity. So if you make the improvements, right, and now you build out the 230,
Mhm.
and then are you right back where you were? Because you improved capacity on one hand, and then you've filled in those units. So now you're back at capacity.
So there's two ways to go about this. Correct. So you're both right. I intend to a certain extent that will be basically sort of towards our max capacity again.
So let me ask you, so on that piece right there, let's say I got a cup, and this cup could only hold 16 ounces.
Yep.
Right? Because I got some other stuff at the bottom of the cup, but really, in theory, if I clean up the stuff in the bottom of the cup, I can get another 4 ounces, and now I got 20 ounces. Jay, that's kind of what you're saying, right? You got to do some work so you can the same cup. I just got to do something different, take out some stuff.
That's right.
That's the I and I.
That's
so now, because I haven't replaced the cup, that's the treatment facility, right?
Mhm.
So now I got this cup, and now I'm maxed out at 20%. Can't put nothing else in here.
Mhm.
But now somebody else says, well, hey, can't you put another 2%? Can you add another 2?
You're going to have to say no.
So you say, that's where I'm trying to go. So unless I change the cup, which is the facilities,
Mhm.
at some point I have to say no more.
That's correct. In fact,
okay.
I'm
just trying to figure it out.
Sure. Even the capacity plan that I put together this summer says, what I did is instead of ringing the bell saying who wants their property to have capacity, what I did is I said, there's only so many lots left in town for development, and you can identify them. So what I did is put all the potential lots that could have development and came to the factor like, okay, potentially, and of course I'm assuming on commercial and ballparking a little high on the commercial ones, that it's potential there could be about 125,000 gallons worth of desired need in the community to build out every single potential parcel in town. And that includes some in the village district. But we only have 75,000 to be able to crate back to your cup. You're only gonna be able to put 20 ounces in there no matter what you do. There's gonna be basically, it's a long been a first come, first serve system. And so those who are coming first are gonna get that capacity. We have a couple proposals that are gonna take up about 130 units of what's proposed out of that 230. So my point is, our capacity plan already identifies every single parcel is built out, we can't do it. So there's going to be a no somewhere, but we know that we can create about 75,000. And
so going with those so there comes a point where you hit the dead end.
That's right. And this is it.
So then the next piece, John, this one's for you. I was reading over the letter that had the pride. Let's see here. It looks like it is the various segments of repairs in town, right? That particular, the November 11th letter. And it just has some bullet points of different things that need to be done at some point in time. Is there a priority of what needs to be done first?
We've identified a couple of different places that would probably be the wise place to start. One of them is one that we did some work to identify it, which was down at manhole 6, manhole 5, which is the very last, I think it's the last,
last bullet.
Last bullet. We were really surprised it had been a bone of contention amongst staff, was this this area, was it a problem? And we were surprised to find out that yes, it is it's one of the more extreme places that needs to be addressed. And the reason it hadn't been looked at before is, you go for the low hanging fruit. And so they went for the low hanging fruit first. They came up with this one, which was a complicated process to look at. But we got through the process of shutting off various flows and cleaning and taking care of it. And we found equipment in that particular manhole that had been installed probably when the lagoon wetland system was in effect. So you were looking at something that was probably 1964, my guess. Anyway, so we identified that. There's a couple other things that we identified that could be taken care of. I'd like to get the 6-inch laterals, those things addressed, just to button up and finish up particular sections within town. Then I'd like to go ahead and catch some of the pump stations that we know that we have problems with, and some manholes that we have some problems with. So there is a listing of projects that we would like to try to grab as the first ones to take care of. Let me just add one other thing, is that when you have the higher than 80% flows, MDE, the first thing they always come back to with your wastewater plant permit is, okay, you're now at that 80%. How are you going to go ahead and address these I&I issues? And so, and follow my hand, if you will. What we want is the flows to be fairly level. And what we get right now is when we have a really heavy rainstorm, we get this high peak and then fall back off. And that problem creates other problems for the town to meet its denitrification qualifications. And the phosphorus, luckily, we don't have a real big phosphorus problem. So that's not a real big problem. But the way the calculations are done, it's based upon flows. And every time we get to that unable to treat, and one of the things that's coming on is the denitrification filter system at the wastewater plant, which is an improvement that's coming through a grant. That should address some of it, but the flow peaks it's a problem. It's a problem, and you want to try to alleviate those so that you have a more constant feed into the system.
Now, John, that makes
So what John was saying, though, just a clarification, he was talking about spikes in the water, but then the denitrification that was a grant is to remove nutrients. It's not going to affect capacity per se, just for clarification. Just for clarification.
So when, let's say those projects are taking place, right? And so you said you would have a lift. I heard you right. You have some projects that would want to happen first before some of the other ones. And then if you're looking at capacity, and I'm just thinking, as I read the memo here, it seems like the projects one project is not contingent on the other, but it's just 6 bullet items of things that need to get done. And then the combination of the 6 theoretically would be able to increase capacity, but then there's a cost associated with each one of those 6 recommendations. And then looking at building out to the that 230, that number, right? And if there's a combination of 5,000 on the developer and the balance on the town, how do you what if you don't get the 230, but you only get, say, 175? Is the town left holding the bag trying to pay for all of the projects that have to be fixed? Do you understand what I'm asking? And that's for anybody.
Well, I can jump in, John. So one of the ways, there is one sort of check valve in here a little bit that we haven't totally talked about is, one of those check valves is you have to approve the capacity plan every 3 years. You just did it this past summer in 2020. So in 2023, it'll come due. And so right now, if you approve these couple developments and they pay into this system, they'll be paying for the capacity that they're buying, right? and we'll be knocking off some of these projects as we go. The point that I'm stating here is we could get to 175 homes and say, you know, we can't do 230, and we're not going to improve any more developments. So we have a checkpoint with the capacity plan in and of itself at the year 3, but also within that capacity plan, we've also built in stop points to say, you know what, we have at any point in time the ability to say, you know what, things have really gotten out of control for whatever reason that we don't understand. We need to pause this and figure this out before we can issue additional permits and those sort of things. So we're making good faith efforts on the front end of what we know from engineering technology and understanding to be able to address some of the issues that both, you know, you have, Ed, and so do Jeff, in terms of understanding what that has. But there are some other opportunities along the way if things don't go the way we hope as well, if that makes sense to you.
Well,
You're
I have
confident
a question for you, Seth. You said you counted up all the potential lots and so on, and
Yes.
what you gave a number, but I didn't write it down. How many?
About 125,000 gallons. Now
I was talking about the number of homes that could be potentially built.
Sure. So throwing that, so 230 homes potentially equals the 75,000 gallons we want to plug. And again,
Right.
we're working with conservative numbers here in terms of that 75,000.
Right, I'm just wondering if we approve $1.8 million to do the projects to gain back 75,000 gallons worth of capacity, and then we never get to 230 homes, so the impact fee is never issued against those homes which you know, let's say are never built, but we already spent $1.8 million, then it seems like the town of Poolsville is kind of has to make up the difference. And I'm wondering if, I don't know, I feel a bit uncertain about approving $1.8 million, and we don't know for sure that we have someone waiting in the wing to, you know, pay us back $5,000 per 230 homes.
Sure. Well,
not that I'm that keen about having 230 homes to begin with, but
I think the other way to address this is let's start from this perspective. As I said, if the Willard property gets approved and the Bricken gets approved, that's about 133 lots. So what we could do and work with John is identify some of these improvements, maybe not all 1.8 million up front. I mean, there's a couple ways to look at this discussion, but maybe not all 1.8 million up front, but we obtain, you know, financing to cover $1 million or $1.3 million for some of these projects that will help deal with some of the things we feel like we need to do as good faith stewards of our system as a town. And then what the 133 homes are going to contribute to this as well, and that they're paying into that and deal with that as well. So that's one way to look at this as well. You know, other way to look at this is that we know that potentially there's about 133 homes coming on. Interest rates are extremely favorable. You know, do we kind of pull this on and deal with this anyway above and beyond the development needs as well, with the understanding that we can, you know, sell that capacity because we're paying for it anyway. So you can do a limited amount of projects to cover the number of homes coming on initially. And then if you feel like we need a pause because it doesn't look like anybody else is coming, we can do a separate and second bond at a future point in time. You don't want to break this down so much that you've got 3 different loans, but maybe if you decide 2 is reasonable, that's potentially possible.
Yeah,
and you feel confident that we can, that like the homes won't beat us to the capacity, like in other words, we can get the capacity up and running before those homes are ready to go online.
So yeah, I mean, John's saying yes. I mean, part of what you know, I think it's a tandem, because the development process and the building out process by the time they get to their last home is going to be several years out. Just, you know, think about the time that Stony Springs took to build out, or Brighton, right? We've got that delay. We'll have time to establish a loan, get it established, get the funds, do the bidding,
Sure,
at work.
And then what do you plan to say to people? And I'm thinking of someone in particular who say, well, our homes are going to be considerably smaller than other homes. Why should we have to pay $5,000 when, you know, twice the square footage is paying the same $5,000?
There's probably really 2 components to that. The simplest one is 325 is 325 per home. That's our metric. The other thing is, the
Good.
truth be told, they're probably all going to be even 3 bedrooms, and even some of the bigger homes might be 3 or 4 bedrooms at most. But you're still going to have a similar number of occupants per household generally.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I was thinking of the very same question that Martin brought up. A smaller home may have less water requirements than a larger home. You know, I don't, and I think it's a reasonable question for the builder to bring up. If I'm building a 2,000 square foot house versus a 3,500 square foot house, going to be certainly more bathrooms in the 3,500 square foot house than you're going to find in a smaller one. So I think if you have an answer to that question, that's great. But it's a reasonable thing, and I do expect that it will come up.
Yeah.
I guess the good news is that you're talking about water versus maybe, you know, the heating system, where it may take more electricity or energy to heat a larger home. Whereas with water, if you got 4 people in the house, 4 people take showers, regardless of the size of the house, that whatever time you spend in the showers, what you spend, or if you wash dishes, or do laundry, all your water usage is not impacted by the size of the home. Is that what you're saying, Seth?
Well, to a certain extent, yes, because, you know, you think about the average family size anyway, and most homes are a 3-bedroom. I mean, sure, there might be a 4th bedroom in some of the bigger homes, but sometimes those are office spaces as well, or additional sort of space in there. And that, you know, your home that's 2,000 square feet, the space is just smaller. The common living space is smaller. Maybe the rooms are slightly smaller, but you might have about the same amount of occupants at the end of the day. You know, maybe some of the bigger ones have, you know, mom and dad and 4 kids versus, you know, mom and dad and 2 kids or 3 kids. But your capacity, your usage is fairly similar. You're only talking about 1 person additional. It's not going to make or break the system, because as somebody mentioned, you still have the dishwasher running, you know, for a certain amount. You still have all the laundry and other things. You know, I'm not sure that 1 occupant's going to drastically make the difference. And then we could go down to, you know, some of our neighborhoods, people are very, I mean, it doesn't impact sewer, but it does impact water, which is a different discussion.
Quick
For the
question.
I have
town,
another question about, it seems like we're having a discussion here about a very short-term solution to a problem that finally crept up over, you know, many years. So let's say we go ahead and John is able to fix the infiltration, and then we get 75,000 worth capacity, and eventually homes are built and it consumes that capacity. Then we're kind of, you know, I guess we're back in the same boat. Do we have a mechanism in our budget to save up for, because at some point, right, the wastewater treatment plant is going to be just too small, and we're going to have to do something, or maybe it just needs you know, some kind of a major overhaul technology wise, or who knows what comes along. So do we have a mechanism in our budget to be able to save up for this kind of very large expense?
The goal is that the treatment plant itself never has to be expanded, because what we're doing is we're just taking out, as Jay put pretty succinctly, what we're doing is we're moving things that shouldn't be in there to begin with. And then what we're having is essentially, right now, essentially the cleanest way to think about it is the amount of flow that's going into the plant today will be very similar to what's going to go to the plant after these improvements. Going back to Ed Reed's example, you pull out, you know, your 4 ounces of material that shouldn't be in there, you create 4 ounces of extra space, and they're very similar. So what we just need to do is maintain the sewer lines going to the treatment plant so that the infiltration is always fairly minimal. We're still going to have some amount of infiltration no matter what. I mean, even your best system is 10%. We're probably going to account for about a 15% infiltration. But it will require us to be a little bit honest long-term about maintaining our sewer lines. Less about the treatment as much as making sure that we're not allowing more than a 15%-ish amount of infiltration. That's really our long-term commitment. And your infrastructure, go ahead.
I fully understand that, but I'm just feeling that, yeah, and none of us can really predict the future very well, at least. And I'm just kind of thinking to myself, if we record this meeting for posterity and we come back at it 20 years from now, we're going to think these guys didn't have their long-term hat on, right? And I'm just guessing that in 20 years from now, if any of us are still here, hopefully we're still in Poolsville, that someone's going to say, how come those guys back 15 years ago didn't think about building a bigger plant, because now we're annexing this property over that's adjacent to Poolsville. And
Here's the story.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Let me jump in just one quick minute. I mean, one of the things is we know that there's a challenge to expand the plant because we're not sure MDE is going to allow us to expand and discharge into the dry Seneca Creek. It's unlikely we're going to be allowed to annex anything from the agricultural reserve because of the policy system that's been set up. And we're not anticipating that to occur because it's a very cumbersome and challenging process overall. And I think there's political hurdles that are probably bigger than engineering, quite frankly. So I think we're good there. And another thing is we can go back in time, and John can explain this because he was here, that we did do a bunch of I&I. And a lot of this has allowed us to create capacity for developments like Stony Springs, and has allowed us to create capacity for Brightwell and those sort of places. And one thing that, I will say to that point, Jeff, is, if I'm here in 10 years and this is not working out, I'm not going to be here another 3 years. So I have to have faith in what we're doing, because essentially, my longevity here is dependent upon making correct decisions that impact the town in a positive, beneficial way. And that's why I'm coming to you in this regard. And, I'm relying on, what we've done in the town that has worked, and we know it's worked. I'm relying on using conservative number of 75,000. We probably anticipate getting a little bit more, but I'm going to underpromise and over-deliver on this issue.
Hey,
And
Seth.
that's where I see ourselves in.
Hey, Seth, are the operations and maintenance costs captured here as well?
No.
I mean, I'd say no, but I think John may tell you it may even be a little bit of wash because, for example, because we have less stormwater going into this, we may in some way, I mean, it's a trade-off because you're gonna have more sewage. You need to treat some of that sewage more. But we also know we're putting a little bit of chemical in here to treat, for example, the nutrient and some other things, right? In that regard. And anyway, we're treating stuff we're really not billing for too, right? Because I mean, when we send you a water bill, there's a presumption that in that bill, we're charging you for your sewer usage, right? Right now, we're paying for rainwater that comes into the system because of an inefficient system as well. So,
Well, one of the things with impact fees is you can't capture O&M costs because that's a user cost. So if we have 200 new homes will be paying for the cost of treating their sewer, and the cost of treating their sewer should be a pro rata share of the cost of the overall amount. So this is really capital, if you want to think of it in accounting terms.
And to clarify one thing for Jeff, maybe that I think you guys kind of touched on, but maybe totally didn't fully explain. It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Jeff, we can't we can only dump so much water back into dry Seneca Creek. So it's not like we can just keep expanding the even if we had the money to do it, we can't just keep expanding the treatment plant. Like there's only so much without finding another creek somewhere else, that we can do it. Is that correct, you guys?
I can expand on that a little bit. So this is all coming back to what they call the total maximum daily load, TMDL. And every waterway in Maryland has a limit that is set on it, and it's all limited to the bay and the treatment of the bay. And so what they're measuring, among other things, but the big ones are nitrogen and phosphorus. And so we have a limit of what we can put into that creek, no matter what. And that limit scientifically determined based on how much effluent is coming out, which means how much influence coming into the plant. And our plant can only make, in lawyer speak, the dirty water certain amount of clean. Okay, so maybe you can make 100% dirty water like 98% clean, but it'll always be 2% dirty. And we don't have the technology, at least at this point in time, to apply to get the extra 2%. It's just super, super expensive to get that extra 2%. Yeah. But at some point in time, there will be an end. You just can't put any more out there. It's just, that is it. And to the limit of technology we have today, there isn't anymore. And so when we were talking about earlier, what Seth is trying to do is take advantage of the capacity we have and use it better. But I think what Jeff was talking about is back to Ed's 16-ounce cup. Can we make it a 20-ounce cup? And based on what we have, we can't. And I think that's what Poolsville always said. And when we do our master plan, it's not like a bullseye where we can put another ring around the town and keep growing and growing. At some point in time, that's it until there's something new.
So take that point, right? And I'm looking at Seth, you kind of touched on it earlier, and I got it in your report on the town of Poolsville allocation for sanitary, sewer, and public water capacity policies and procedures. And I'm on page 2, item 3, allocation, capacity, calculation. And I'm just thinking about that right mix between dwelling units and business and any type of business development. And how do you have that right mix if we're looking at expanding economic development in the area? How do you make sure that you don't overbuild on one end and then you don't have the capacity to maybe bring in some type of business on the other end? So, it's like finding that, how do you go about finding that right mix? And my last question for now, it's what is I would like, I know I don't expect you to have the answer right now, but I would like to see at some point, what's worst case scenario, what's best case scenario, to truly understand all the risks that might be involved. And maybe there's not a lot of risk involved, but I am interested in knowing what is the worst case scenario and how will we deal with that. The best case scenario is always easy because it's a best case scenario. Everybody wants that. And like I said, the other part, I think about building more. When you build more, the more people you have, the more amenities and businesses that you want in the area. All right. And so I just think about the economic development piece. And as we look at what is that economic development plan going to look like? And if you're looking to attract other businesses to open up shop here, do we have that capacity? As how many more businesses can we really handle if you got another restaurant, right? Or two, do we have the capacity for the business in terms of the facilities? But then the other piece, with you think about a business, do you have enough clientele, potential prospects to patronize your business to make it worth investing in the community?
So I'd hate to get to a point where some beautiful grocery store calls up Poolsville and say, hey, we'd like to build a grocery store here. And then we tell them, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have enough capacity for your grocery store. I think we would not look very good.
So first of all, let me say this. I'm glad you're all thinking this way, because I think after these couple last larger residential tracts are potentially approved and built out, we probably do need to start thinking a little bit more with the remaining amount that could happen is, what is that right mix? I think it's a very appropriate discussion. We should think about reserving some to a greater amount for the village center so we can talk about that issue, right? And ironically, depending on how things work out, and John can kind of talk this a little bit too, is ironically, a grocery store may only need a very fractional amount of sewer capacity because mainly they're restrooms. It's ironic because you think of a big place needing a lot of capacity. But if there's really not living units in there and they're not process anything that's going to the sewage system, a place like that might equivalent to one home unit, ironically, because it's just the restrooms. Now, other things like if we get a restaurant, and that may have a little bit different because of the whole cooking operation, those sort of things. But I do think that right mix we need to start looking at before we approve many more after this development. We can come back with the risk situation, and then the building. And what you're talking about, Ed, is sort of this cycle, right? It's the old classic discussion of rooftops and retail. You need enough residents to buy and purchase from retailers for them to actually come to your location. So you need enough consumer base, if you will, in order to attract retail. Now, I think we're always going to be a little bit of a niche retail here in Poolsville just because we're covered by multiple markets anyway. And that's what retailers are going to look at as well. But those local businesses, those mom and pop shops you're talking about as well, I think are an element. And that's why I see, as we get to the master plan, we'll have to think about these things, about some infill potentially in the village district that allows sort of some spec units that maybe somebody who can do a mom and pop facility, call it locally owned or more local shop.
And
could
Seth, what I
do
think
this.
about is, I'll just jump in for a second. Like when I think about a niche, maybe
Mhm.
like a niche kind of shop. And I know this is an economic development conversation, but I think about the little ice cream shop that was here. What was it?
Movies.
Mooey's, right?
Mooey's,
And think
yeah,
about
Mooey's.
Mooey's, and I wonder how many more people did they need to stay afloat to buy? How many more people need to buy a little bit more ice cream for Mooey's to stay afloat? And I'm not opposed to smart growth, right? But
Correct.
so I think that it's like we're looking at different. There's a big puzzle, a big picture, but we got to examine the puzzle pieces to make sure we got all the right pieces that we put together. Because once we put them together, they're going to kind of like be glued and stuck there.
Correct.
So,
Let me pull this all together. So I'm actually kind of glad you're all thinking that way, because I think we need to start thinking about that with the remaining capacity after these couple developments that are potentially on the table. But pulling it together, the question here becomes, do we want to charge the amount that's been proposed based on the discussion we're having here for the potential improvements that we need to have? And whether we do 1.8 million or 900,000, this ratio is essentially still the same, because they need it more than we do initially, and there's a certain cost that we can bear to make this capacity. And then I think there is a healthy discussion once we get down the road a little bit past this discussion about we need to start focusing on the right mix. And I think that's going to be an important part of the master plan as well. So I think after these couple developments that I've said several times, I think we need to be more judicious about what we allocate to, knowing that, with the technologies in place, the stream is coming to an end, if you will. So I think we need to focus on, we're eventually going to have to set a public hearing on this discussion about raising the impact fee. And
I have one.
Go ahead. So
Yeah,
I guess the discussion comes to going in a direction. Where does the commission want to go in a direction with this discussion presented before you? You ready to hold a public hearing? You need more information, but go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, one quick question. Does Poolsville have in its budget enough to pay was it 2,500 per home?
Well, yes, we can contribute to that. Yes, we have the capability for that.
what does it cost us?
That's a ginormous number.
Well, I'll go back for Jeff's question, Seth. If this might fit into the answer you're getting ready to give, if the answer is yes, we have it. All right. I just would want to know, what are we giving up to do it?
So both questions are good. So here shortly, before long, we do have one of our notes coming off the books for some of these improvements. So if we kind of take some of those dollars and put it back towards a loan, we would be in some position to be able to pay for that. So essentially we're taking, one note and contributing it to another note in a similar payment pattern. So that's the simple, direct, linear connection. Now to you, Ed, there's a discussion of what would you rather use the amount that you're paying per year instead of on I&I, what would you like to put that towards, right? Is there something else? And, we can get into this whole value system of the fact that there's trade-offs no matter what you do. And let me keep the most direct one is, yes, we could take the amount of money that it takes annually in the budget and contribute towards something else, whatever that something else is that we desire. The flip side is a lot of our budget year over year is collected in income tax and property tax. So for us, the building of those homes creates an income tax base and a property tax base. So those dollars can be used to do some of the things that you might be thinking about. What can we do otherwise, right? So that's something really to think about is, development does have an impact a little bit, both positively and negatively, right? We get more roads, we get more sewer lines underground that we accept and have to maintain over the long term. Flip side is we increase our tax base, our income tax, and property tax. And so those are just all those scales, right? And you could I'm sure you could put this in a chart and analyze them all and figure that out. But I don't want to think just because we're putting in one kettle, we're losing exclusively somewhere else.
No, I'm with you. I would just, and we probably don't have time for it tonight, but then I would want to do like a cost benefit analysis of the decision, and a risk analysis, because I just want to make sure that if something doesn't work out, I'm all for being optimistic and I love the conservative piece, but I just wanted to make sure that that what's the worst case scenario where Poolesville, the town of Poolesville, is not left holding a bag, owing a debt that it can't generate enough revenue to take care of. And maybe that's not even an issue. Maybe I'm
that if you said earlier, what's the worst case scenario? And I think that's the worst case scenario, is that not that the houses won't build. The worst case scenario in my mind is that you give approval to build these houses and the fixes that we are paying for don't create the capacity the way we think they will. We will then be on the hook to create the capacity because we already gave approval for the houses to build.
And we already took their money.
And we cut a deal with them. And so in my mind, there's like two issues and two processes that you got to kind of, in my mind, look at them together. This fee monetizes the cost for growth that's created with your allocation scheme. And you have approved the allocation scheme, so that's who gets it and when. So, we need to charge a fee because it costs money, but who gets it and when is really tied to that. But when you have that whole thing working out with your group, the planning commission needs to know, do we have capacity or not, so that they don't give approval to these developments that are moving through the process. And theirs is a process, right? Somebody comes in, then they get preliminary approval, then they get final approval. And the worst thing we could do would be grant final approval without your group saying, yeah, we're going to fund the fix so that we actually have capacity. And then the overall strategic thing is your master plan saying, well, do you want this kind of growth or that kind of growth? And that guides everybody. So, my concern when Seth and I look at this is that certainly there's a cost associated with fixing I&I, and that will have a benefit for the developers. You can argue over what the cost should be, but if you're going to use the fix of I&I to create capacity for the developers, that's a policy statement that you're kind of making by doing this. And it sends a signal to your planning commission that, yes, you can start approving these processes, these projects for growth. And that's the ones that Seth talked about.
Can we wait until the capacity exists after the repairs have been made in order to give out the capacity? Because I think what you just said is kind of scary, right? We get this.
It's a known thing where, like John said, that we know that we fixed this and it generated a certain amount, and we know based on studies. I mean, it's not willy-nilly. They studied this. The problem is it's not a problem, but it's a concept of financing, in the fact that if you're going to forward fund all of these repairs, the total amount of repairs now, and then recoup it, that goes back to your other concern of what if these places don't build? Because I may never get my money back.
Right.
So what you're trying to do is do it in phases, as Seth said, where you're financing enough to create enough capacity so that you can sell. It's kind of like a grocer does. I'm buying enough groceries to put on the shelf to sell those cans of soup so I can buy more cans of soup and put them on the shelf.
I wonder if it would be helpful if we could kind of see those phases a little bit more clearly, like some kind of a timetable of, because I know you say, Seth, in your town manager of your report here that we're not pressed to create any additional capacity at this time. So I guess my question is, what is the recommendation then moving forward? you and John, I'm sure, probably already have an idea of what that is, but maybe
let
it
John-
would be helpful for all of us to make these decisions if we could see that a little bit more clearly, what kind of phases we're talking about.
Let me just back up with Jeff real quick. Jeff, and I'm not sure you're aware of this, but the Westerly project, the Coteen pump station used to get on a rainy, like we just had, they used to get 1 million gallons. That's what came through that plant a day, 1 million gallons. We did the work. We lined that section. It dropped down to 200,000 gallons.
Wow.
So,
that's a big gap.
so it's not just hocus pocus. And we saw something similar at the wastewater plant when we did the work in the Westmond area. So we know these techniques work, and it's just a matter of capturing various segments. As far as being able to get flow data and things like that, it carry for various things. Well, at manhole 5-6, we can't get that data because that section is submerged almost every day. That where the leaks are down. We were able to get videos on a dry day, in that we were able to show, oh wow, we have 25, 30 gallons per minute coming in on a dry condition. Who knows what it's like in a very, very wet condition when the flows are really up because the manhole's submerged and we can't tell. So, I don't know. Well, I'll let you take it on.
There's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing going on here, particularly when you say, do we do all the improvements, see what we get, and then sell it? But there's some folks waiting in the wings a little bit to move forward. Sure, are we gonna? And the state's fine with this, so I don't want you to get all nervous. Are we gonna go from 80% to 85%, make the improvements, and drop down to 75%, and then be kind of good for a while? That will happen. There's a little bit of yo-yo. There's an understanding that will occur. But as we plug these things, and John has said, and so has Jay, is that there's a science to this. Even if it's imperfect. And I'll give you an example, and John can speak to this. Every stormwater management plan, meaning how much water flows off a site and you capture, is a little imperfect. We talk about it like it's rock solid, that if you got 1 square foot of impervious area, that means it's going to generate A, B, C, and D in terms of area. You overbuild on stormwater management for the impervious area because it is a little bit imperfect science. And this is the same thing in that regard. But we have known quantities, as John has said. So, trying to either wait or do this or that, I do think, if I were to sum it up, we have some projects looking to come online. One I think that we'd want to encourage as a model example of how things should be done. There's a need for them to pay the freight of what they're contributing to the system because they need the capacity. We do need to maybe think, after these couple developments are approved, that maybe really being very judicious, as I said earlier, about what's the right mix, because if we want to kind of focus on the village infill, and that's the whole reason you created the zoning overlay district, and there is by plan, a targeted area for reserving some of this, I think that's what we do at that point, and make some decisions. Now, I think as Ed has clearly stated, you have a big sphere, and there's lots of different pieces of that pie that fit together. But I don't think any one can go without another, if that makes sense.
You guys, I hate to interrupt, but I'm going to have to go. I urge everybody, this has been a good discussion. I'm glad to see everybody's learning and trying to pick up on how this works. There is a lot more to it than what you scratched the surface of. Good theory, good discussion, good stuff, but there's a lot more to it than this. And just for a couple of headers, and I don't want the explanation now. If you guys want to talk about it afterwards, you can. But this is a serious departure from how we've done things in the past. And I'm going to want an explanation. I'm going to put all this in writing too. I'm going to want an explanation why we're doing it differently. And I'm sure we have good reasons, and I know some of the reasons. The other two is pay attention to this, you guys. We are ultra ultra conservative in our projections, and I'm sure that our team here, which is well versed, I mean, we've got good guys. John's worked for other places. Obviously Jay has worked for other places, Seth has worked for other places. We're going to get a good, well-rounded view of where we are in terms of capacity. But a lot of this is a decision that goes hand in hand with the direction of the town through the planning commission. So we have to think about that. Last but not least, be cognizant of this. What is being proposed is a tax increase, right? We say we're putting this on developers. Developers are going to put that on our new residents. They're not going to pay it. This is something that you are creating a tax for our new residents, whoever they will be as they come in. And I think you have to consider it that way a little bit too. It's a big chunk of change. You know, we're going to gnash in a budget session coming up. We're going to gnash our teeth over raising taxes $20 or $30 or $50 a year for our residents. And you're talking about a, you know, potentially $5,000, $6,000 increase for what will be new residents. So I know it's hard to look at it that way, but this is going to be a substantial departure from where we've done in the past. Not saying it's right or wrong, but you guys need to get a well-rounded view of why we're doing it differently. And you know, you've dug into some of the cost benefit analysis, but there's a lot more to it than that. So I urge you, do not make any decisions anytime soon on this. Study it, get good with it, and let's get a game plan that's a really well-rounded game plan along with our town philosophy.
Jim, I have a quick question for you. Was there an expectation that we were going to vote on this evening?
I don't think so, but it's been on the agenda a couple of times, so it always could be voted on.
Well, I think given your statements and that we need to have maybe several more conversations, you know, with you participating. I know you have to go right now. So
Well,
I
I'm
don't know.
listening, and you guys have been asking all the right questions, and it's good to get educated on. That's you guys are doing. There's still a lot more to come, and said I'm very confident in our team too. We've got good guys, and Seth, I do like, you know, you've given a great, well-rounded picture of how all this comes together, and Jay as well, and great explanations, good yin and the yang in terms of trying to make sure that people get it. But at the same time, you know, there are more questions to be asked. I plan on putting them in writing. I'll send them to the guys. You know, we have to talk about, like, it's still unclear to me what's included in our current use capacity versus what we're going to be projected. I mean, is the last time we left this, every single house that we could build that's been approved was included in our current capacity projections. Is that still the case?
So the most important question that I just want to make sure you got is places like Brightwell that have already received approval. And that's the biggest development. They're under that radar, and those people have been pre-approved under what is our sewage flow capacity report are good to go. And I think most of that is Brightwell for the most part there. John, would you agree with that?
Right. Well, what's left is Westerly Grove. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's right. Westerly Grove mainly, and a few remaining at Tom Kettler's place.
And also too, there's a fair amount of onesies and twosies out there too, right?
Well, onesies and twosies use capacity.
Right. That are included in the.
So in our flow capacity report, we have to, what was ever on the books at the last go round, which was January 13th of 2020, it's accounted for.
Well, but what I would say though is when you adopted the capacity plan, that anybody who wasn't yet previously allocated, that chart has allocated from years past and then basically providing new allocation. Anybody from 2020 into the future years is going to have to pay this when they come in for building permit, would be the statement. Anybody who had prior approvals to July of 2020, you know, would be basically, they're under that previous capacity plan with the expectations that were granted to them with the current fee rate in place.
And you guys, and that's good. I like it. A good explanation, Seth. You guys also too, you know, impact fees are, when we talk about raising impact fees, again, we're taking ourselves in from a certain realm of who we are as a town, and we're putting ourselves into another realm. And I think that in the end, what I'm saying is, you know, already people are paying. And again, trust me on this, the developers do not pay this. Our fellow residents pay it. It has nothing to do with the developers. The developers are, it's a pass-through, period. Now they have to decide what makes them competitive, but your future next door neighbors are the ones that are contributing to this. We need to know, you guys need to know why, and then you need to recognize, you know, what the town benefit is, what the town is going to get in terms of benefit. So we have a lot more to talk about as far as I'm concerned, because I think all, you know, the four of you, with the exception of Martin, who's been in plenty of meetings already, you have to understand what the overall impact of this tax is and how it's going to apply. You ask great questions, Jeff, plenty of good questions about it. Ed, same thing. But we've got to, you know, you really got to be a student of the game, and you're getting there. But it's a lot of money. This is a substantial tax increase.
Jim, the other thing, and maybe Jay can comment on this, but I got the impression that time is not necessarily on our side. Like we had to make some kind of decision, maybe not necessarily tonight, but soon, because we have two big developments knocking on our door that are beginning to want answers, are going to want answers soon. So we need to have some kind of a you know, a way forward sooner rather than later, is the impression I got.
And you know, and what we're basically talking about, and that's it's a good point. Although, you know, Martin, as well as I do, that we don't have to approve anything. It makes sense to be able to do it if it fits the town's philosophy through the master plan. But I think the end result is that there is competitive issues that are associated with this. I want to hear how what's changed from how we dealt with this in the past to how we're dealing with it now, because in effect it's a 50% increase in our impact fee that's being charged to whoever the developers are. And it's a little odd because it's, you know, we've got a set impact fee for Lennar, let's say, who's still got to build, you know, 40 something houses, versus who could be coming next on it. So, I mean, I appreciate all the homework, and I understand, you know, there's definitely going to be a need for cost for increase in somehow we get our money, because we're going to have to, you know, upscale our I&I and upscale our capacity. But we kind of want to, I want to make sure everybody, you know, has the big picture of how this works. And also too, just, you know, there were other funding mechanisms that we've done in the past. The town has, say, for instance, borrowed money. You know, what's our existing big loan that's going to expire right now? Jay, Seth, what's our big loan that's going to expire?
I don't have the amount in front of me right now.
But let's say it's a couple $1 million, because we've done that in the past.
Correct. I don't think this one's that way. It might be the $1 million, but I mean, go ahead.
Well, just, you know, you're in a sense, you're going to be, we're going to be increasing I&I to help new development take place, but also to benefit the town as a whole. And I do get that that's your, you know, look at the money. We're asking for $5,000. You're talking about $5,000 impact fee increase. The town's going to eat a couple $1,000s if that's all those projected costs are true. You know, big picture, what does development get us? What is our concentration of development? How is that going to work? You know, that we've talked about all the mechanisms behind it. Now we've got to talk about and save it for another day. What do those costs mean, and how do they affect how the town is going to eventually look and build out?
I think any projects in the pipeline could be approved with condition that when this issue is addressed.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe the way we handle it is just, we are putting them on awareness that we can approve, but we don't have capacity.
Well, I like it if we keep meeting, and you know, this we're right now we're an hour and 20 minutes into this one. Obviously, this is one of the biggest decisions probably this Board of Commissioners is going to make over the next, you know, time period. So I want to make sure that we all really get it, and that, you know, you're prepared as you represent the people that elected you. Remember, now you're making decisions for the people that are going to be moving in. So we kind of figure out that we you know, that everybody gets it, and that you're good with it.
Sounds like we're kind of setting up for a workshop discussion.
I mean, I think it would benefit all of the commissioners if we just focused on this.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of a workshop, Seth.
Sure.
a lot of great
Let me set out some dates and times, and we'll be able to keep this discussion moving because I think it's a worthy discussion for our community.
And in the end, you guys, I'm just gonna, only because I've got some experience with it, I'm gonna be writing up a bunch of questions that I'll present to all the commissioners, and that we can either answer at the next meeting, or we can get some information back prior to.
Hey, Jim, when you put those questions together, one of the things I'd like to know too is especially being new, was what did happen in the past,
Right.
you know, more so behind the scenes, and then what happened in the past, how were things done, and then why were they done that way, and if they had to do them again, what would they do differently?
Right, that's fair.
Yeah, so it's the how was it done, why was it done, based on reflecting on the outcome. Would you do it differently, and if so, what would you do differently?
And I mean, it's a good point. And Ed and just Jeff too. I know you guys are worried about us getting like caught with our pants down, where we spend all this money and then for some reason development doesn't come, or it doesn't work out that way.
Right.
You know, it can be all staged. It can be done sequentially. The money's not all laid out right off the top. And the gains that they're talking about, they downplay it, but this is science, and they do have a pretty good grip on what they're going to get out of this. And remember, all of our projections are ultra conservative. Like Jay, do other towns use 325 gallons a day? Is that the standard?
No, other towns use 250, and the reality is most places use about 150, 125. So it's
So do you guys hear those numbers right there?
Yes, yes,
yes. 125 to 150. Many other towns use 250 as their max, and we use 325.
So that's a very large buffer then. Yeah.
Large buffer and a smart buffer. And I've always supported it too. It makes sense. But know that, you know, I know these guys are doing this for the right reason. It makes sense. Well, we've just got to kind of talk about it.
But I want to jump in here a little bit because I wanted to play with that number too. I've worked the system forward and backward just for clarity. If we're and we are, because this is really what the treatment plant actually treats, is nearly 600,000 gallons on average per day. And we have about 1,884 accounts. You take 600,000 gallons and you divide it by 1,884 accounts that we have, and it gives you 321 gallons per home. Because I wanted to kind of play with that number earlier this year, and then I realized we're more accurate than we had thought based on what we have. So, you know, I worked with that number a little bit too. Now we can attribute some of that to the inflow, but all we've already discussed for an hour, how we're shifting that inflow to new residential.
Right. Good point. Good point.
So let me ask you, so that we could take some time to study, learn, and really make sure that all of us collectively are making the best decisions for the town. Maybe we can look at what those next steps would be, because I don't think we'll solve it here tonight, but I think we can identify what the next step is so that we can make well-formed decisions where we understand the impact and ramification of the decisions that we make.
And Ed, it's a good point. Just one more point here too, just to make it kind of again a global perspective. You know, what our I&I problems do not exist in our new neighborhoods or the neighborhoods that we're going to be building, right? But in order, because we're going to have capacity issues as we grow, the capacity issues potentially exist because of I&I, right? That's one of the reasons why we're going to be putting this money into it.
Right.
But the new residents and the new houses use, if I'm not mistaken, they use far less of the I&I in general than the new houses do. So, and I know you're going to take that into account, Seth, but it's but you know, what we're doing is fixing what's old. And we're going to be using new residents' money to fix what's old so that new residents can move in.
Right.
But there's still an impact fee legal definition that is met through that process, or else we wouldn't even be here.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's fine. Anyway, all right. Well, you guys, I wish I could stay longer, but you know, I've got to go do some business stuff, unfortunately. So, hey, Seth, I did have a question for you too. Do those our biggest users in terms of getting into that 325 gallon day thing, is that, I mean, that probably includes the schools when they're in session. We have some big users too.
Well, we can look at that, but as I stated earlier this year, we thought we were going to see a drop when the schools closed, but we didn't essentially ever, because a lot of our students are so local, relatively, that they just went home to their house and used water and sewer there instead of at the school.
Got it.
Because we thought we'd see a drop.
Right.
We didn't.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Sorry I can't stay any longer. Just want to get that interjection in. I love listening to all your questions and everybody trying to learn about it and get some perspective. It's really good. This is as technical as it will get for us, guys, is to go through this. And Seth, good presentation.
Thank you.
Good perspective, Jay and John. And you guys have a good meeting.
All right, take care, Jim.
Yeah. See ya. All right. So I think where we're leaving this, if I'm correct, is maybe I'll send out some time that we can meet on this as a special meeting and dig into this. I mean, it's going to be important for Jim to provide his questions so we can work through those at the meeting and be prepared.
Right. Sounds good.
What's next on the agenda, Seth?
Well, I'm getting to that item.
The Willard property?
Yeah. I wasn't sure if Carrie was going to pop back.
Sorry, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay. The Willard,
yeah.
So
what are we deciding right here though?
Sure. On the Willard property, the only thing we need to do.
No. What are we deciding in terms of moving forward with the last agenda item?
Well, I'm going to send out some dates for a workshop that the commission.
Workshop. Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
So for the Willard property, and either it didn't print or I didn't put in your packet. Oh, here it is the only thing for the Willard project tonight is to set a public hearing, date and time, which I'm proposing to be February 1st, which is your regularly scheduled meeting. And this will allow us to get the legal notice in the paper. We won't be able to meet the legal notice requirements for the next meeting, which is going to be Tuesday, January 19th. So that's why we're at February 1st.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. We've got it. That's that item.
All right, great. And then, sorry, go ahead. Someone have a question?
I was going to say, is that the last thing on the agenda, or?
We have one more thing. We have, we have two more things. We have the meeting scheduled for 2021 and then town manager's report.
Yes. As the president stated, your last sort of new business item here is I provide you a schedule of meetings just so you have that for the year. You'll notice there are some conflicts with Monday holidays. The next one, as I indicated, is going to be Tuesday, January 19th is when you meet, because the day before that is MLK Day, and then you get the others. But I just want to have this to you so you're aware of the schedule of dates as well. So you just have that for your reference.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then my town manager report. So let's go over some general items. So the at this point, the infrastructure tour is on for Friday with you all. The weather does look a little rain snow mix, so I don't know if that's going to impact how you all want to move forward. I feel comfortable moving forward, but if you all want to go to the alternative the snow day, we can, but
let's stick with Friday.
Let's stick.
Yeah, it's not like we're driving very far.
Yeah.
I think we're fine. So just want to make sure Parks and Rec, they had a railing repair at Stony Springs, so they took care of that. There's a tree that sort of took out a 2x6 railing over there. They're taking down all the Christmas lights this week, so Preston's crew will be very busy this week working on all that. Over at the wastewater treatment plant, well, just to finish on the topic we had is they're managing all the infiltration and water that's coming in there, and a lot of residents are using a lot of water because they're home, and that means translating to sewer. So there's a lot of high flows to the water treatment plant that's being addressed. Our in terms of Andrew's department out in the street section of water and sewer, they've got a few water main break today, on top of a few things we're trying to get done this week. We did the rubber mulch, as I had noted in a Facebook post, but we had some leftover rubber mulch, and we put that at the Wooten top lots. So we've expanded where that's being used at, which is a good thing. Just a reminder, Fair Access and Sustainable Poolsville still have open positions. The deadline to apply is January 14th at 4 p.m. We're still working on street lights. I drove around after our last last regular scheduled meeting, and looked at some street lights and noticed there are a number out. So I put those on a list to be addressed.
Is that, we already received one application for the Fair Access Committee, is that correct?
I think you've received one at this point, correct? I have to look at the records, but that makes sense.
Thank you.
Just Parks and Rec, just to cover something from last month really quick, is they talked about some speed humps on Hughes Road between Tom Fox and Tom Fox, and then a couple of intersection improvements at Tom Fox and Hughes, which will be on their agenda. That will be coming this Wednesday as well. So they'll have a few things on their agenda that will come back to you in the future. And that's the conclusion of my town manager report. And again, the Tuesday meeting, the next time we meet.
Very good. If there's nothing else, I'll make a motion we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. I guess we didn't have any questions for you, Seth.
That's fine. I think I got my fair share under the other agenda.
You got a lot of.
Yeah,
I'll start writing them down for the 19th.